Hey, today I'm going to show you how I make my resin end caps so that you can take an ordinary downspout like this and turn it into a lot of grow boxes just like that. Now I'm excited about this because I've been on YouTube about 5 years, and a lot of you have seen all my videos with my garden, and I have a whole lot of these grow boxes, and there's all kinds of kale and pak choi and basil and mint and all kinds of stuff growing out there, right? And this is going to open up the door for a whole lot more of you. A lot of you out there have already made your own by grabbing some of these and heating and bending the ends like we used to do. I'll put a little playlist up there. If you want to, we did that for years. That's an easy way to do it, but you have to get a heat gun. And some people were like what I do with my heat gun when I'm done bending my grow boxes. So this is going to help out because you don't need to do like some of the current videos you see. I make a lot of these and I used to sell them. So I would have a chop saw, a drill press, a CNC machine, all kinds of fancy stuff just so that I can make a lot of them. But most of you at home are just going to make a few, and you might make some for friends and family and that, but you really don't need all of that. Because believe it or not, I started out with a hacksaw, just cutting these with a simple hacksaw and using a hole saw that I had. And some people, if you don't have that, you can always just use one of these spade bits. This one's only a couple of bucks on Amazon. And just drill a 1-inch hole instead of 2-inch hole, still works just fine. Now, as far as that holding water, we have to find some way to plug up the end, and that's why we were heating and bending the ends before, right? Then we had the little end caps. That works just fine too. But if you want to make your own, and you don't want to buy them from me, you just want to make a few, you want to go out and buy a $300, $400 CNC machine to do that, right? So I've been trying to figure out some other ways so that more and more of you can do this, and you can do it on your own too. And I started using resin. We're going to talk about that in a second. I'll show you how to mix it up. But I went through a lot of little trials and tribulations, and you guys know I've been working on this for months. So I'm going to go over some of that so that you don't make the same mistakes. And I'm going to show you a couple different options because they all have their little nuances, and you might want to try one way over the other. In the end, what I did, because I have to make hundreds and hundreds of these because I sell them, I ended up making a mold. And it's just real simple. Once you get it made, all you have to do is set it level, pour your resin in there, and then 24 hours later pop it out. But for most of you, you won't want to do that because these are kind of expensive. So you're probably only going to make about a dozen of these to start off with. I mean, if you get a 10-foot downspout, 120 inches, right? If you make some about this size, this one's 16 inches and there's 4 holes on it. If you did 20 inches and you put 5 holes in here, you could get 6 of them out of a 10-foot downspout. So you need 2 end caps on each one, right? So that means 6 times 2, 12. You're going to need 12. These end caps that I'm making right now are 2 ounces each of resin. So when you go to purchase your resin, I'll leave links down in the description. When you think about how many you need, you're going to need about 2 ounces for each one. You can put a little more, a little less, depending on whatever you want to do, whatever makes you comfortable when you start making them. But I find that 2 ounces works just fine for me. Now, if you get a small one like this is 17 ounces. So there's part A and part B. It's 2-part clear epoxy. And if you get part A and part B, 17 ounces each, so that's 34 ounces divided by 2 is 17. So you're going to be able to get 17 out of each one of these, the 34 ounce set. Me, since I'm making hundreds of them, I was getting the big set. And also, this is how I used to do it back in the day. We used to do countertops and bar tops, and we would have to get gallons of them, but you won't be getting that much. So I'm going to set this back here. It's really sticky. When you get to working with it, make sure you get gloves because this is a sticky mess. If you get it anywhere, it's really tough to get off. So go and wear gloves. Now, when you go to do this, every one of these sets that you order is going to have a set of directions, and they might be a little different. So I want you to go ahead and whichever one you get, make sure that you follow the directions that are on the box. I've got this one from Craft Resin. I'll have a link to this one in the description. When I worked through all these different ones, I found that this one was the easiest to work with. It says low viscosity, no VOC, odorless, non-toxic, non-flammable, bubble-free. So this one worked really, really well. If you want to try one of the other ones, you're welcome to do that. But I think if you've never done it before, if you're a beginner, this is a good one to start out with. So like I said, we'll pour up a little resin in a minute. But before we do that, as with everything else, like we used to paint, for years and years we would paint, and some of our customers, we'd work like a whole day doing prep, before we even started putting anything on as far as a mural. And what you want to do is prep is everything, right? We didn't want to spend, our time going back and fixing stuff from before. So we painted for the past 25 years, and we've never gone back to fix anything that was our fault. We've always had like water damage, or plumbers or electrician, someone cut a hole in something and we had to go and patch that. But as far as the paint failing and the mural messing up, we've never had to go back and fix anything. Is because we took our time and we prepped everything right. So make sure you go through, read the directions, and prep. Now, one thing, even though this says low VOC, you might want to, I've read a lot of things that say you don't want to breathe this stuff, so make sure you're in a ventilated area. You can use a ventilator, or a respirator rather, or you can do like me if it's nice outside. I mix my stuff up, and then I walk on outside and just mix, stir it up outside, and then I come back in and pour it. So just do whatever you can do just to be on the safe side. Now, you have your gloves. You're going to need something to pour it in, because what we need is a mold that's going to fit the end of this end cap. And I love this because these fit in here just perfect. And the way we make them is we've got to take this and make a mold out of it. Now, several different things you can do. One thing, if you don't want to mess around with making molds or anything, is I found these connectors. And usually if this is your downspout going down the side of your house, this would be a connector. If your house is a 2-story house, right, and these come in 10-foot sections, you might need to connect 2 together. So these just fit inside of each other, one on top and then one on the bottom, and they just is to just join your 2 sections together when you have a square edge. So if we take those, we can pour the resin directly into there, right? Now what I've done, here we go. I took a couple of them and I poured the resin right into it. Now you're going to see that works good. I've got some out there. I'm growing in them, and I did a couple of grows, so they work just fine. But the resin sooner or later might pull away from this vinyl. It depends on like this getting hot and cold. I'm not really sure how long it'll sit out there. These are a little thicker than your downspout. They don't really move that much. But I think that if you pour directly into something like this, sooner or later it might pop out. But I just thought if it did, I can just put it back on with some silicone. So I think that's a real sleek look, is just going ahead and pouring it right inside of here. Now, if you notice, there's going to be a little texture on there. Now that's another thing, is wherever you pour it, when we set these down, we're going to pour our resin into it. Your resin will come seeping out the bottom, right? So we have to seal it up. So I took something called, it's this blue sticky stuff that you use to tack stuff on a wall, and then it's repositionable. You can pull it back off. And I put that around. That worked just fine. I use duct tape. You can cut thin strips of duct tape and just duct tape it down. And anything that will keep that resin from coming out. The resin's going to be about the consistency of corn syrup. So it's not like water that's coming rushing out. And if a little bit seeps out, you can always cut it. So anything like duct tape or that putty in that will work just fine. You can always silicone it and let it dry. Don't use caulk. Caulk doesn't mix with the resin very well. Now, another thing, if you, like I said, if you notice this little texture on there, whatever the resin is sitting on and it cures, you're going to have to pop it off. It's going to have to pull off of it. So if you do it on something porous, like this cardboard or something, it might not come off too good. So you've got to have something that the resin is going to pop away from. Now, one thing I found when I used to do countertops years and years ago was that we used duct tape, that the resin wouldn't stick to the duct tape. So that's the first thing I did, was try to get some duct tape. And I've got a board. This is 3.5 inch board. So I figured our downspouts are 3 inches wide. It'll fit right on there, right? So I got a 3.5 inch board. And I put some duct tape. You'll see some silver one. You'll see a little black duct tape. And that worked good. And I poured a couple and they did pop off. So that works well. But that's where that texture, see the texture on the duct tape? That's what the texture is that you see on the end cap. So I was like, well, what's smoother than the duct tape? And I tried Scotch tape. Now that works real well, and the only thing that left was a little line. Yeah, I'll show you. Where these two come together. See that line in the middle? So where the tape comes together, you're going to get a little line, and then see the texture from the duct tape. All of that's aesthetic, and if you don't mind that at all, this works just fine. And in fact, I'm sending some of these. Everyone that, you know, sent me an email, I said I had a bunch of trials and tribulations, and I went through a lot of experiments, so I'm sending some of these out. I got a bunch of emails from people. I've sent some out, but if you haven't heard from me yet, I haven't forgot about you. I'm still going through them, and I'm still making mistakes, and I'm still sending them out. So be patient. I'm going to get some to, you know, I'm trying to get some to everyone. So just be patient, and these will be forthcoming. Like I said, these are just the imperfect ones, and I'd rather somebody would get those than them go in the trash. But back to this. So if you're not worried about the texture, you know, if you just want this for it to work, that works just fine. Duct tape, perfectly good. And most of you have duct tape in your house already. See, I was trying to use some things that I know you all have. That's why I use Scotch tape, duct tape. Another thing, if you don't want that line down the middle, I've got this is actually resin release tape. And this works really good with it. I've tried it, and so you can tell I bought one that's 3 inches wide. That's just the exact width of the downspouts, and you take this and you tape it, make sure it goes down nice and flat. What I did was I bought brand new baking sheets, and I put it on a baking sheet so it's nice and flat, and I poured it, and that's how I got a real nice clear looking one. So if you want to, you can, I'll put this link down in the description too. You can get something like this, or any kind of wide Scotch tape will work well. That's if you're trying to get a real nice look and a clear look. Some of you might be doing this like a little experiment, but like I said, otherwise, if you guys are, you know, don't mind, you know, the imperfection in it, that works fine too. So these are pretty cool because you can do them either way. Depends on the look you want. You can pour them in either end, because this goes on there and you'll have a little end that looks like that. Or you can put it on the other ends, which will take a little bit more resin. You can pop that end inside and you'll have a look that looks like that. So just, you know, whatever you want, it's just up to you. So that's one way. That's the easiest way. That was $2.50 a piece, I think. And if you're talking about one 10-foot section is $15, you're getting 6 of these, that's a great deal. I've seen the little hydroponic grow boxes. I'm sure y'all have seen them on the internet and Amazon and Wish and wherever. And they're little tiny hydroponic grow boxes are $20 or $30, and you only get 6 little holes in them. And for $15, and then if you get your resin, you know, you can make 6 of these. And the fantastic thing is, you don't even have to cut these down. If you want to buy more of these, if you want to buy 4, 5, 6 of these, you can leave these 10 foot long, put end caps on them, and you can have 30, 40, 50, 60 plants in each one of them, and for $15. That, you know, so that's crazy. That's why I like that. If you've got the space, I don't have a whole lot of space in my backyard. We can't put like downspouts everywhere, and we still need room to walk, and the dogs still need to go out there. They're a lot easier to move if they're smaller. That's why I like making the small ones. But if you have some place like back when I first started, we had the handrails, and we could put these all on the handrails, and we knew we weren't really going to move them anywhere, that works fine too. So all kinds of possibilities. Now, so that's the easiest way, just doing it like that, right? The next way, what I did was I cut little pieces here. So if you get a 10-foot section, you cut little 1/4 inch, or not quarter, 3/4 inch pieces off of it. So if you took 1 foot, you sacrifice a foot, and you use the other 9 for your grow boxes, you could cut about 12 of these out of it. So that's what I did next, was I just cut a bunch of these, and all I did was take something that was flat. Like I said, we like reusing things, you know, but I had a baking sheet. I bought a couple baking sheets, but I thought, what if somebody doesn't want to buy it? You know, is there something free? And this, a bunch of croissants from, what was it, Costco. that I got. This is just the lid to that container. And what we did was we took 3 of these, go in the bottom right where it's flat, and I siliconed it in. And if you guys notice, try to get in here for a close-up, you see the silicone smeared around the edge, right? But you don't see it's nice and clean on the inside. You want it nice and clean on the inside and have the silicone around the outside. Go around, just get some on there. You might go around it 2 or 3 times. Silicone sets up pretty fast, and I would let that sit to the next day when I was done. And then you can set that on a flat surface, get you a little float. I've got different bubble floats, right? So these are surface. Y'all know how to use a level. These are cool. I've got one over here that's like round. This one works really well because when the bubble gets directly in a circle, then you know it's level. And I would set it on there in the middle, and then I get these little shims and just shim it up. Or you can use cardboard, whatever you have in the house, you know, little pieces of cardboard or a toothpick or skewers, and just shim it up until you get that bubble right in the middle. Then you know it's level. So you get that leveled out, and then you just mix you up 2 ounces of resin for each one of these and pour it in, and you're all set. Then all you have to do is just let it set for 24 hours and then come back, and it should pop off of there really easy. And to get them out of here, you can fidget with this and bend it a little and work them out, and sooner or later it'll pop out. To me, since this is so cheap, you know, 3/4 of an inch, I make a bunch of these, and what I was doing was I was putting them in here, and then I would actually take my razor and just cut it a little, and then I could just peel this off a whole lot easier. But the way you put these on here with silicone, or you can anything that's got a real nice flat surface so that you don't get that tape seam on it. See, it's real nice and flat. Anything like that, you can do it on the board. You can use this just like you did with these. You could also get your board, if you get a nice flat board, remember any imperfections in the wood is going to show through in the resin, but you can put tape on there. You know, you can use this tape and duct tape, whatever you like, and that's how I started out with the duct tape. I just duct taped that on there like that, poured the resin in, pulled it out. So lots of different ways you can do it. And another way that we had did it was we actually took the downspout, drill your holes in it, you know, get it all set, cut the ends, drill your holes in it, and then we set this up on the board, on the tape. Now I've got a couple of these out there working just now too, so that works right. So you put this on here, tape that or put your putty on it just like you did. The first one you can pour in through the top, right? So measure out 2 ounces, pour it in, let it set 24 hours, then come back, pop it off, take it, spin it around, put it back on the other end, go ahead and take that off, and then this time you're going to want to get like a little funnel or tilt this a little bit. You want to pour it in through that top hole, pour in your 2 ounces, and then you've got this other side sealed up. One thing, if you get a nice flat board like MDF or something, you know, don't get any like knotty pine or anything unless you want that imprint on your resin. If you want it nice and flat, just get you a board, and like this, you could get your downspouts, and if you have like 6 of them, you could line 6 of them up here and pour them all at the same time. Measure out to 2 ounces for each one, 24 ounces. Pour it all in, 6 times 2, 12 ounces. Pour them all in, let them set up, flip it over, do the other side. So, like I said, I did all of these ways work, and if you're just making a dozen of these, that's just fine. And just me, I was making hundreds of them, so I had to make a bunch of molds, and I sold a bunch of these. There's some of you out there have done that, and you bought some. If you guys have made some and you want to sell them, let me know. You know, I'll point people in your direction. I want to see what y'all are doing. This is the way to go if you want to make a bunch of them. So if you're just going to start, I just suggest you do something like this. If you've got some kind of pan sitting somewhere where you can silicone them on, that's the easiest way to go. If not, one of your baking sheets, something like this, just a piece of wood, you know, what's that, a couple bucks over at the store, and a little bit of silicone, which you're going to need to put these on anyway, and you're set. Now, we're going to mix this up. So those are different ways that you can do it. I want to show you how when we mix them up, this one's cool. Look at the texture on that. When I first started doing this, I was using different paints, black and white, to black these out. We have the clear ones, and I was trying to find something else because the black paint was still a little bit transparent. You could still see through it. If you got sealed up the end of your downspout and looked in it, you could still see through it a little bit. And I was trying some different things, so I looked through the resin, and one thing that people use is mica powder, and that's this right here. It's ground up real fine pigments. I think it's metallic. This one's silver black, QC402. And when it's mixed up, it looks real cool when you're mixing it up. We'll mix up a cup of it, and you can see that. And then when you pour it, the different ways that you pour it, every one of them is a little bit different. I mean, there's ones that are come out a little more, you know, subdued. And there's some that come out with a little bit more texture. You come up kind of close so you can see that. So you can mess around with them, make them your own. See, that's flat as can be. But the mica powder in there was moving as it was setting up. So that's what I do. So you can get, they've got all different colors if you want to make. I think they've got, here's green. They have all the different colors. There's pink, white, reds, blues, just anything you can think of. So just look around on Amazon. You're gonna find something that you like, and we'll mix that up in a second. But that I found works the best. They've got some pigments in that. If you use any kind of pigment, if you're not going to spray the end like what we did here, we put the black end cap on. Now these are too pretty to spray, right? I think that's going to block out the sun just enough. And if you're not going to spray, then if you don't plan on doing that, then you want something that's going to be a lot more opaque. So this mica powder I found worked really well. When you hold that up there and you look in, it really blocks out the light. So I like that mica powder. It seems a shame to cover it up like that, but you know, we're not really making art. We're making something that, you know, is going to work out there in the garden. But if you guys want to dress them up, like I said, they've got all different colors. These sit up, you can see like the ends of them. It would be kind of cool if you had like different colors on it. I put the little gears for the steampunk. You can put little flowers, you know, dried flowers and that in there, or these little fake flowers, seashells, just anything you like. So like I said, I think this opens up a wide variety of things for people to do. That's it as far as this goes. We'll mix up a little batch real quick. I'll show you that. It's just equal parts A and B. And one other thing I did, they do have the mold material. If you want to go ahead and you don't want to try to make your own molds, if that's a little difficult, then you can always get the mold material. And what I did was I took this right here and cut them a little bit wider, and then I pour the mold, the silicone mold material, which comes just like an epoxy. It comes in a two-part mixture. You mix A and B, and then pour it into here, and you make little molds. So this is only half full. So this bottom is a material that the resin doesn't stick to, and it comes off of very easily, and this moves around. So once you pour it in here, you can pop it out. What you do is you go ahead and set this down. You've got your mold in it. Now you've got a little insert for the bottom, right? That's your little mold material. Then you pour your resin into it. Right? You pour your resin in, get it filled up, and then when you come back, and it's dry, both of these, you know, then this pops off, this peels off a lot easier. You'll be able to peel that off. And then what you have is a little thing here where you have a little bit of a room to sit there and mess with it and pop it out. So that makes it a little easier. That was just something else I did. I don't really recommend that. Like I said, unless you're really getting into this and you're making a lot of them. I just want to show you one of the other things that I did that, you know, there was probably 2 or 3 times more different things that I did, you know, trying to figure all of this out. But that, you know, that's just another way. I recommend just using something you got laying around the house. You don't have to do 3 at a time like this. You can do 1 or 2 if you've got a smaller container. What do you call it? I've used the ramen bowls, the ramen containers, and put them in there and use that. So just anything you like. Now, if you want to make a mold, we'll move on to that. So anybody who wants to do this, if you got questions, just leave it down below. Let me know if you want to live stream and you want to see me live stream and do all of this. But I think that you pretty much can get the hang of it. Just watch. There's a lot of videos and there's instructions. Follow the instructions that the manufacturer gives you. There's different ways that you can do it. And we're going to talk about making the mold material because a couple of you asked me. So I'll go over that really quick because I got one little trick up my sleeve that I use to get this right. And the rest of you, get out there, keep on growing, live to inspire, be the change. We'll catch you next time. All right, now if you've hung around and you want to know how to make the mold, this, like I said, is just like the resin. It comes in two parts, part A, part B. I'll put the link to that down in the description. It'll be in my Amazon shop. And this was the easiest stuff that I found to make. So you mix equal parts together, stir it up, and then you pour it into a mold. So whatever you want to mold, like say we want this one, right, this end cap. So you've got to have one of these first. So before you can make this your mold, you have to have your prototype that you want. So you're gonna have to do this once at least and get one that you're happy with, that you don't mind making copies of. Every imperfection that is in your prototype is going to show up in the mold. So if you take your time, get one of these right, get it nice and flat on the bottom, you get that right, and then you use that to cast your mold. Now let me show you what I did. All right, recognize it, right? Ramen container, we use that for everything. And see that? Looks like the ramen container. So all I did was, the first time I just took, one, I got it right, and I set it down in the ramen container and went ahead and poured my mold over it. Well, what happened was the mold kept going around it and it wasn't doing just right, and I made a bunch of them too, and then I set them up and I was trying to level them all out. I didn't think that when you put it in here first, you want to get this nice and level. So it doesn't really matter, you want the bottom level. And then when you take whatever you want to mold and you set that in it, make sure that that was level. It looks nice and even. It's not a real crooked one. When you put that in there, you want to go ahead and get your bubble level on that too. So before you even pour your mold material on here, get all of that, everything perfectly level, right? And then once it's all level, then you go over and you pour your mold material in. And that's what I did a couple of times. And this would move around and a lot would seep around the edge. And it was hard to get both of these, the black container and this, leveled. And I found an easy trick was to pour one of these that you like and make it a little bit thicker than what you need. Then set it in here, put your bubble level on it, and get it as level as you can. And I'll show you. All right. So I set it in there, and I just put some skewers on it because there's a little dip in the bottom, right? I didn't want the stuff flowing under it, so I wanted a nice flat surface. So I lifted it up off the bottom a little, shimmed it, just cardboard and skewers, whatever you have, anything, will work. Anything you can get to just shim that up and get this right. Just level this out right, and then mix you up a couple of ounces of resin and pour it around the edges. Don't pour it on here. This is nice. This is, that's a nice flat surface that you got, right? Pour it around the edge and fill it until it reaches the little bottom edge of that. Don't fill it all the way up on here because you'll take away the thickness of this. So if you still want this like, 3/8 of an inch thick, you don't want to fill up the edges all the way over it because that would defeat the purpose, right? You just want to bring it right to the bottom edge so that you close up that seam, and this will level out on itself. So this will self-level. So if you've got this all leveled, if you leveled everything in the beginning, this should be pretty much on point, but it'll for sure level everything up for you. So you get a nice level and nice smooth even edge around it. And then you let that set up for about 24 hours, then you're set. Then you take this, then all you have to do is take this, set it on the table, right? You put your level in the middle, and whichever way your bubble needs to go, I just get little shims. You can use big black ones. You can just get little pieces of cardboard and just kind of start shimming it up until that you move that bubble until it's right in the center, right where you need it. Then once you got it, remember to take this out. You don't want to make a mold of that, right? Once you've got it leveled, don't bump into it. You'll have to re-level it. So go ahead and just make sure that's like that. Mix up part A, part B. Just pour it on top. This one, to make a mold like this, I used about 7 ounces. So it's about 3.5 ounces of each, part A and part B, and it came out to about 7 ounces. And so inside the ramen container, depends on what size container you use. You might have a bigger container or a smaller one. Might have to adjust it. So you're gonna have to play around with 1 or 2 of them to kind of get it right. But this mold right here took about 7 ounces. And that's about it. And then you have this. Then you let that set up. This sets fast, a lot faster than the resin sets in about 6 hours. So if you come back in like 8 or 12 hours, you'll be able to peel it right out. All you gotta do is just work this around and pull the edge, and you'll be able to pull it right out. And then you'll have this, and you can make, depends on how much mold material you have. You can make more of these if you want. So if you get 4 or even 2, you can make a set each time instead of doing 1 and then 1 and then 1 and then 1. So that's how you do this is relatively simple. I think that making the mold was a lot easier than actually making the end caps. But once you have this made, this makes it a whole lot easier, because once you set that down and that's in it, you get it leveled out, you pour your resin in and it sets, you come in, this peels off. When you do your first one like this, you're going to see how much it sticks to it. And if you had one of these, it just peels right out like that. 10 times easier. So that's all there is to it. I hope that helps. If you guys got any questions, like I said, leave it down in the comment section down there. I try to get to everyone. You guys get out there, make you some grow boxes. And the most important thing is share it with everybody. Let's get the entire world growing, whether they're doing this or using milk cartons or recycled materials or whatever they're doing. Everybody needs to grow some of their own food. Live to inspire, keep on growing, be the change. We'll catch you next time.